Hi everyone, this is Dr. Victoria Nalule, and here with me is Miss Selina Zhuwarara, originally from Zimbabwe, but she's based in South Africa right now. And in today's webinar, it's going to be a very short webinar where she's going to discuss her book chapter, which is focused on digitalization in artisanal and small-scale mining. So before we start, I'd like Miss Selina to briefly introduce herself.
Thank you very much, Victoria, for hosting me this afternoon and allowing me to share one of my greatest passions, which is the ASM, the fate of the artisanal and small-scale mining sector in Africa. As you said, my name is Selina Zhuwarara, and I'm the principal consultant for a firm called Autumn Mining. It's an advisory firm which specializes in policy, governance, and sustainability issues in the mining industry. At the present moment, the firm operates in Zimbabwe, but we hope to grow enough to also provide services to the region and also beyond. In terms of education, I have a legal background, and because I worked a lot in the corporate sector, I also had to beef up on business administration and also specializing in the mining sector. So this is what that is my background. And then career-wise, I've worked in the mining industry, specifically in the diamond mining sector for about 9 years before I started the consultancy. And that is where my passion for the mining industry was actually born. And thereafter, I decided to start the consultancy to provide these services for governments, corporates, and all sorts of entities who would like support in terms of policy governance or sustainability issues, because I feel that this is an area which still needs a lot of attention in our continent. So that's basically about me.
All right, thank you very much for the introduction. So without wasting any time, I would like you to take us through the issue of digitalization in the artisanal and small-scale mining sectors, because I've also done research, fieldwork research in the mining community, and you will notice that in most cases, the miners are still relying on rudimentary methods to extract minerals. So this is a very important topic because it's one of the ways to ensure practical solutions to the challenges that these miners face. So would you give us a brief overview of the topic concerning digitalization in artisanal and small-scale mining?
Okay, so the chapter will focus on explaining how digitalization can assist the African regulatory framework over the sector to improve. And I think in order to understand it fully, I'll first explain why the ASM sector has failed to really perform as much as we would have wanted it to perform, and how we have failed to fully harness the potential of the sector. I believe that one of the problems that we have is in the structural support that is offered to the sector. And when I talk about structural support, I mean two elements specifically. First of all, the legal standing of the sector, and then of elements of the sector. And then secondly, the rules, the guidelines, and the policies which support the elements of the sector within the economic arena. So those two elements have not been attended to fully in our regulatory frameworks. And this is why we see the initiatives and the efforts that we keep putting towards the sector always providing lukewarm results. And to just expound a little bit on that, let's take the first element, which is the legal standing of elements of the sector. While it is clear for small scale mining entities, they have a defined legal standing, which is commonly understood in all our jurisdictions within Africa. However, we cannot say the same for artisanal mining. We still find that African countries grapple with how to deal with this sector. Other countries have legitimized it by giving it licensing regimes, and others haven't. And this disparity in treatment actually undermines the effort to position the sector favorably within the commodities and global mineral market. So until we have a definite and common position on what artisanal mining is and its legal standing within the mining sector, and the whole continent agrees to that position, it will be difficult to actually improve their fate. And then on the second issue, which is the rules and the guidelines, which is basically the regulatory framework which supports ASM entities within the economic space. This is where most of our countries fail. We have failed to position the sector favorably to perform well within the economic space. I'll give you an example that a large scale mining entity can approach the bank and get a loan based on its financial standing and its future revenues. It is difficult to apply the same metrics for an artisanal miner or a small scale miner because their financial standing is very different. And also sometimes their lack of information and their lack of a correct approximation of future revenues totally disables them to access the same facility. So we have failed to reimagine new economic rules that enable small and medium scale enterprises to approach the institutions that we have in our economy, key institutions like financiers and financial institutions, and be, and manage to acquire the same services. We have not fully addressed those issues about how these entities can fit into the sector. Now, this is where digitalization comes into play. And I really believe now it's of strategic advantage for Africa to really look at this issue. Digitalization has changed the way information is processed and what you can do with information. We can see it in how it has totally improved efficiency in small corporate entities, in safety, in supply chain management. So the competencies that we see that have been demonstrated in the use of information and data can be transposed into the regulatory framework which governs the artisanal and small-scale mining sector to improve their fate. I would like to explain this a little bit further by saying that, first of all, the sector is compromised by lack of information, accurate information on the actual status. Simple things like the production returns of the sector. There is a very big gap in how to collect information, in whether we're actually getting accurate information being submitted in terms of the returns of the sector. But if we incorporate digital tools, which improve our ability to collect and verify the accuracy of this information that is coming through, it can help us to have a clear line of sight about what is happening in the industry. And then the most important element after that is, once you have adequate information and a clear line of sight in regards of the sector, then you are able to invite all the other vital stakeholders that support the mining industry, such as financiers, equipment manufacturers, service and product providers, consumables providers, to say, this is the information we have. It is accurate information and it is verifiable, and we're receiving it in real time. So can you use this information to then structure bespoke products and services for the sector? And in my view, this level of confidence, this improved level of confidence in the data and information that can be generated from the sector has got a vital role in improving its economic integration. Because if we do that, we can now position the sector favorably by increasing the linkages around it, by making industry and the general economy understand it much better. So for me, digitalization is not only important in terms of improving the accuracy and the veracity of the data which can be collected from the sector. It will consequently also improve the decisions that regulators and that the general industry can make on behalf of the sector, especially in structuring policies, in structuring laws, and guidelines which assist the sector in the economic space. And then thirdly, it can actually be a platform to leverage this information to open up new avenues for this sector in the general economic space because of the level of accuracy and the ability to integrate different facets of data generated from the sector. So in my view, digitalization will definitely improve where we've been failing to actually um, regulate the sector properly. It will improve how we collect information. It will improve how we store this information. It will improve how we synthesize the information coming from the sector. It will improve thereafter our decision making and also how to position the sector for enhanced economic integration. So in a nutshell, this is what this chapter will look at. It will look at the problems that the sector has, the structural issues that the sector has. Then it will look at various digital tools that can be utilized to, to overcome these problems and position the sector for better economic integration.
Thank you very much, Selina, for the brilliant presentation. Now, I just have two questions with respect to digitalization. The first one is the issue of gender equality.
Mm-hmm.
In case we employ digitalization in the artisan and mining sector, how
Mm-hmm.
are women likely to be impacted both positively and also negatively? Do you ever suggest a point where this digitalization might help to bridge the gender gap? Because at the moment, artisan and small-scale mining is one of the sectors that really has lots of gender inequalities, where women are working, but they're not benefiting as much as the men. That's the first question. And then the last question is with respect to finances. Because with
Mm-hmm.
digitalization, obviously, uh, these miners will have to invest some money to acquire the necessary machinery or other systems that they need to use. And in most of the mining communities I visited, the miners don't even have money to buy the gloves, which are like £1 or maybe $1, $2. So if they cannot afford to buy protective gears, how would they afford to shift into digitalization, which obviously should be expensive in a bit?
Mm-hmm. No, thank you for these questions, and they're very pertinent questions. I think, first of all, I'd like to address the issue that in this case, digitalization is going to improve the regulatory processes and the framework around the miners. So we'll find supportive digital tools, affordable digital tools, which the miners have or can acquire, which can then fit them into the system. And it's very important for government to lead by actually digitalizing the regulatory framework, because it will also help level the playing. It won't. It will help to bridge the digital divide, because at the end of the day, government is the best placed broker to ease African, regulatory targets into the digitalized economic space. So for your first question on women, it is very correct that women are vulnerable within this sector. And I believe digitalization can assist that. How? By processing information from women miners more accurately. I believe that at the present moment, we do not have sufficient statistics about the women that are actually participating in the sector. We have not narrowed down into the socio-economic baseline indicators that enabled us then to really look at their issues and how to handle them. So let's take, for example, a woman who signs up as an artisanal miner and who signs up and registers with government to be a legitimate miner. If she can use an ordinary tool such as a mobile phone to communicate with the regulator, to input information, to lodge complaints, to lodge her daily returns, then we can now actually see the demographic of women more clearly using digital tools than we can in traditional regulatory systems. So I believe that it is going to also play a significant role in bringing to light the issues that affect women and giving them a platform to actually deliver this information and data firsthand to regulators directly instead of third hand through other organizations. And this data can now be synthesized more clearly because when you look at a digital system, it can isolate data coming from women. It can isolate the issues which are common to women. It can isolate, the concerns which they have, and therefore also build into better decision making for regulation or for elements of regulation that support women within this industry. So I really believe digitalization can assist women within the sector. And then the issue about finances is very, very critical because finances are the reason why we do have this stunted development of the sector, why it hasn't been able to position itself in a more sustainable way. So when you're looking at digitalization and the way I have proposed it to occur, is we're going to use, you can use ordinary mobile devices, like an ordinary phone, which is commonplace in the hands of minors right now, whether it is a smartphone or whether it is a phone without access to internet services and all that. We should be able to structure and model the digital regulatory framework in a way that allows a minor with a simple mobile device to communicate directly with the regulator, to input their reports through the mobile phone, to input incidents through the mobile phone, to receive notifications from the regulator through the mobile phone, through messaging, and also to be able to actually access other services through the mobile phone. And this is using equipment that is already, or mobile devices, which is already commonplace within many hands within the artisanal mining sector, is something that can ease the process of digitalization. And I believe this actually draws to the fact that when we think about digitalization, we shouldn't think about big things, mainframes and all sorts of systems. We should be able to realize that our use of the mobile phone itself is a form of digital integration within the economy. And this phone can change actually the lives of small and medium scale enterprises if used correctly and if connected and integrated within the right systems. We have seen it, especially in this era of COVID, how many businesses have transitioned their services to mobile or to electronic, online services. And within the same thread, we can structure and package data and information and the regulatory relationship through the mobile phone in a manner that actually assists people to have assist government firstly to have better oversight and people to have better response from government because it allows real-time real-time exchange of information and allows the government to attend to those issues within real time. So when we look at digitalization, we shouldn't look at complex or very expensive devices. Let's look at the things that are already in our hands, that are already in the hands of the artisanal and small scale mining sector, and how we can improve those basic things and make them bring or edify the value of their enterprise. That's what I think.
Thank you very much. I totally agree. We can always start with the small things and the things we can have access to so that we can make changes we want in the future. So this marks the end of our webinar. It has to be a small webinar, but before we close, I'd like you to give us some concluding remarks with respect to the key issues that policymakers should consider. So first is the policymakers in African countries, and then secondly is the miners themselves. What kind of practical solutions should we embrace to see that all artisanal miners can take up or can enjoy digitalization in their operations?
All right. I really believe that for policymakers, The issue of artisanal miners is now long overdue. We've been discussing this issue for 40 years, and we continue to experience great tragedies within the sector, health or safety tragedies, and we cannot continue to look at that and not provide solutions. Every problem has got a solution. And in this case, the first issue would be, let's legitimize and legalize artisanal miners. Let's accept that an individual can participate in the mining industry constructively and be part of the mining industry, and can undertake a very basic element such as panning or prospecting and bring their product to government, which will aggregate that product. I think we need to accept that fate. That's the first step for us to embrace artisanal mining and bring it formally and uniformly into the ASM sector across Africa. Once Africa has decided that and has common ground on that, it is easier to coordinate and regulate a framework around it. And then we also look at creating a conducive economic framework for the sector. We cannot legitimize and legalize the artisanal mining and then expect both small scale miners and artisanal miners to fare within the traditional economic system. We simply have to realize that we have to regulate their activities with the same amount of energy that we have regulated large scale mining activities right through from mine to market. It's properly regulated. There are checks and balances and counter checks, which make sure that from mining operations right to the market, everything happens within the letter of the law. And we have the economy and institutions within the economy rallying to support, large scale mining and how it does business. This is the same sort of energy we need to put towards policy and regulation around the ASM sector. We have to envisage it from mine to market. We have to envisage how this entity can be born, how it can operate, how it can survive within the market space and the issues affecting it in the market space, and how we can improve it. And it has to be comprehensive. And then for the artisanal miners themselves, I believe that we need to teach and we need them to see the benefit of partnering with government. It's a partnership. In the same way that large scale mining entities have partnered with government, it's a symbiotic relationship where there are obligations and where there are benefits. This is the same sort of communication and relationship we need to actually build in the ASM sector. They have to see the benefits of partnering with government. And in this respect, government also has to structure benefits surrounded or supporting compliance so that these miners see the benefits of partnering with government. And as I explained, one of the most significant potentials for me arising from digitalization is its ability to leverage information for greater economic integration. Once miners can see that by complying and by being part of the system, my own fate, my own growth can be edified, then they will see the benefit of being part of the system and part of the symbiotic relationship. And this is what we need to articulate, that it's a partnership. And whilst the sector is giving us its product, we can also give it life. We can also give it sustainability and commercial viability. We can also make it competitive through the regulatory framework. So in a nutshell, I think it's very important for regulators to realize the significance of the regulatory relationship and how we can use it and its potential in building the sector and positioning it for transformation. When we look at Black empowerment, we look at transformation in the sector, I think there's no other sector that signifies significant transformation as the ASM. It's local participation within an industry that has been dominated by foreign capital. So whilst yes, we can talk about integrating into the systems that have been created by large-scale mining companies, we need to concentrate on building local capacity to become competitive within the industry itself. So these are the focuses that I really believe that policymakers and the miners themselves should consider.
Thank you very much, Selina. I do totally agree. I think all stakeholders have a role to play, and cooperation is key if we're to tackle all the challenges associated with artisanal and small-scale mining.
True.
So would you like to share your contact details for some of our viewers who would like to reach out to you?
Okay, I'll provide them. We would need which ones in specific?
You can share with them maybe your email address if you
All
want.
right.
But if you don't wish, they can message on LinkedIn.
No, it's okay. My email address is selinazhuwarara@gmail.com, but I think I'll give you so that people don't get, my surname is pretty long, so that people get it correct. I'll send it over to you and then you can share it with everyone.
All right, thank you very much. This marks the end of our webinar. Our viewers, look out for other videos, other webinars we'll be having concerning the future of the African energy sector, where I'll be hosting different authors to discuss their topics. And these are very experienced people, so I'm sure you'll enjoy this series of webinars. Have a lovely day and bye-bye. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you very much.